Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Maria Gonçalves podcast show. And today I have a very special guest all the way from the UK, Adam Berry, who is a modern day spiritualist medium with traditional values, who grew up in and around Bury, Lancashire, UK. Oh, I said that right. Adam was awarded the Spiritualist National Union, SNU prestigious Gordon Higgins Memorial Scholarship Award in 2016 as he worked his way to a diploma holder in demonstrating for the SNU. He's also author of Soul Rise, which is available on Amazon. Amazing book. You need to get it. And he's also a tutor at the prestigious Arthur Findlay College in the UK. So welcome this morning for me, this afternoon for you, Adam, to our podcast today.
Thank you. Good morning, Marie. And from a dark and dismal afternoon in the UK.
So I wanted to share with people that one of your mentors is Mavis Pattilla. Did I say that correctly?
Mavis Pattilla.
Mavis Pattilla. Thank you for correcting me. And that was one of your mentors. Can you tell us a little bit about her and what was it like learning from her?
Well, Mavis was just an amazing medium, speaker, tutor, but also an amazing human being because we actually became friends as well throughout her teachings over the years, and it was wonderful. But Mavis was one of these people that you heard about when I first went to the Arthur Findlay College. I remember Glyn Edwards was the tutor that I first had during my first week in 2005. And I remember him talking about Mavis Pattilla. And obviously that was just a name at the time, but there was some wonderful stories about a mediumship and how they used to work together. And it wasn't until a few years later that I actually um, went back to the Arthur Findlay College in 2011, and I was given a wonderful sit-in by a lady called Jose from Holland, and she said, "You must get in touch with Mavis." And I think she realised that we actually lived quite close to each other, maybe just an hour away from each other. And so Jose sort of was friends with Mavis and put a recommendation in for me to go and see her. So I booked on the next course that Mavis was doing, and she used to hold these courses called Spiritual Explorations in Disley, which is near the Peak District. And so I went on that, and I just felt like, oh, Mavis has got all the answers for me. She's going to tell me how I'm going to be able to do my mediumship and this pathway of, because I'd always gone through a time over the years of um, sort of stop and start with my mediumship. And it come to a time, it must have been 2011, and I'd really started to take things seriously. So there's something that was shifting within me, and I really wanted to get this right. I was really serious about it. So I just remember seeing Mavis, and one of my friends who I'd gone with, she went, "Mavis, this is Adam." And she just hovered her hand over my back and said, "Oh, he's got a good power." And I thought, what does that mean? And um, I wasn't actually in Mavis's class over that weekend. I was in Minister Janet Parker's class, at which I had a wonderful time, and it was just a wonderful weekend. But I did have this sitting with Mavis, and she told me, "In 3 years' time, you'll be a professional platform medium." I didn't believe that. But she gave me some wonderful evidence of the spirit world, and I just and she actually recommended me to start going to this church that was quite forward thinking. So I did. I followed this breadcrumb trail, I suppose, with what Mavis was telling me, and went to this church, and I was going each week, and I just wasn't feeling it. I'm thinking, I'm doing as I'm sort of told here, so to speak, but I'm not really feeling that. You get a soul pull, don't you, for a soul pull to know that you're doing the right thing. And
Yeah.
I kept going each week, and I just wasn't sort of feeling it. So I still continued, and then there was another course that was coming up at Disley. So
Mhm.
obviously, I wanted to spend more time with Mavis and try to learn from her. But I couldn't go on this particular course because of work, because it sort of infringed on work, because I work in construction during the day as well. So it's kind of difficult to get time off sometimes. So when I just said to my friend, I'm sorry, I can't go on this course. And a couple of months later, I had this dream, and Mavis was in this dream, and we was walking on a train platform, and she said, "Are you coming on my course, young man?" And I said, "I can't, Mavis. I can't because of work and what have you." And the look of disappointment on her face in this dream woke me up. It actually woke me up. And I'll never forget it. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. And I'm awake in bed thinking, how can I get on this course and how can I get out of work or whatever? Then I thought, hang on a minute, I don't even know what this course is about. And I'm trying to get I'm trying to get out of it. But I spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I reached over and got my phone and um, went onto Mavis's website, and this mentorship came up, and it was like a thunderbolt to my stomach. It was this excitement. I couldn't describe it. It was just incredible. And I'm there sort of waking my partner up and saying about this course, which they didn't really get. But before I knew it, I'd actually applied for it. I was on my way to going on this course, but you had to have an interview for this course as well.
Oh, wow.
So, so for me, because I was never academic because I've got dyslexia, so I'd failed all my exams at school, and so this is like my university. This is my way. This is what I feel passionate about and want to do because it everything that was described on that course is everything that I needed. I felt I needed to learn about my own mediumship and my own development. So I did. I ended up going on it. I got accepted on it, and you know, what Mavis did for me, because I was painfully shy. I wasn't, somebody that would just. I was someone that would take a step back where people are dying to get up onto the platform and share their
Mhm.
mediumship or share their speaking. I was never like that. I had to be encouraged to get up. And I always had this enormous sense of guilt for not getting up because it's like you're working for the spirit world. You should be people saying you should be excited to get up and work for the spirit world. But my insecurities and my confidence really held me back. But what Mavis did, she threaded everything together with what I'd learned over the years through different teachers. She just threaded everything together. And I just resonated with her just so much on every level. I don't think there was anything that I couldn't resonate with her, and I could just listen to her all day. And I knew that she knew me. She knew me on this energetical level, or to understand how much she could push me and my sensitivity would take without running away, because that's what it would have done if somebody had have been too harsh with me or too critical or too, I would have just walked out the door and not gone back because that's my personality at that time, you see. So what she did for me, and Jean, her wife, because it was both of them, because Jean was the person with the mainstream teaching skills because she was a headmistress, and she knew all the presentation, how we should, to give confidence in our presentation and speaking.
Mhm.
And Mavis obviously worked with the mediumistic side of things, but together it was a wonderful combination. And I just, for me, it was like this growth spurt in a way. So from going from from when I first started in the mentorship, from not being able to hold a contact or or, or do two communications together. By the end of that, a year later, I was actually taking my own divine services. So that was a huge step for me from that first point to a year later taking my own divine services. And I'm not saying um, it was it was an accumulation of things, because my development had started years before that as well. But it's as if like it was just coming together. I was in my early 30s and it was just coming together. I came into spiritualism in my early 20s.
Oh,
So
wow.
so it was just from that point. So it was as if like, I needed to live a little. I needed to live my life. I needed to experience. I needed to work through things. And now's the time to use your mediumship. Now's the time for your soul to rise, so to speak. And um, I just loved every lecture, every philosophy, every demonstration that Mavis did with us. And she introduced me to teaching. So when I had never taught before, she took me out to a church that was local, and she wanted me to teach with her. And I had that sort of imposter syndrome. Oh my gosh, I can't believe Mavis has asked me to teach. And you have all these, you want to say, you're saying yes, but really you want to say no, because again, it's that confidence thing, because you're always stepping outside of that comfort zone on each different thing that you do, each new thing that you do. But I knew the sole pull there was to explore this. And what Mavis did to me, it was very clever what she did, because she always says, you should know your students. Every teacher should know their students. And like I said, she certainly knew me and my energy and my sensitivity. So there was probably about 20 people, 20 students in this church this day. She gave me a pad and pen and she said, right, Adam, I want you to psychically assess all of the students, starting from the top, the back row there, and work your way across. I want you to tell me what their strengths are, what the what their strengths are mediumistically, if they're a healer, if they're a speaker, what strengths clairvoyantly, clairsentient, and what are their obstacles. And there was probably a few more things. So I'm like,
Wow. It's a lot of
okay,
pressure.
okay then, yeah. So I'm sat there with my little notebook, and I just started to, and I'm thinking, I don't really know what I'm doing here. It
Yeah.
was, but I'm writing, and I go sort of like the lady with the red blouse on, and I was having to sort, because I didn't know what the names were or anything, so I'm just having to
Yeah.
describe them, and then I was getting this sense of what they were good at, what their skills were mediumistically, and what were holding them back with the obstacles or anything. And what happened was I'd wrote it all out as Mavis were doing the introductions, and then she just went round everybody and asked them where they were up to, and everything that they were saying was everything that I'd written down, and I'm like, "Wow, I
Wow.
just I just couldn't believe it." And I remember we had a break, a cup of tea, and I just said to Mavis, I says, everything that they've just said, I've written down. I just and I was like shell shocked. I just couldn't believe it. And she just went, Adam, I'm proving to you that you are a teacher.
Oh, wow.
And and I thought, wow, that was a wonderful example of showing me without me knowing that I
Yeah.
was a teacher. So that was my first glimpse, I suppose, of teaching. And that was, some years ago now. But it was a wonderful way of doing that. And that's what Mavis was like. So she would there would always be a purpose behind the things that she did.
Yes.
And you'd be, you was actually doing something that you didn't realize that you was doing. I remember years ago as well, she asked me to write a letter to, because this was all part of the mentorship as well. She asked me to write a letter to grieving parents about the loss of the child. And I did do that, and she sort of assessed that. I'm thinking, why is she doing things like that? What is the purpose of this? And
Yeah.
it's like, and now working, I'm actually studying now to be an officiant of the Spiritualist National Union, which is in the ministry. And now when I look back, I think, gosh, that makes sense now why she was doing that to what I'm doing now. So it's as if like she had this understanding of knowing that one day I would go into the ministry in some way. So
Oh,
it was,
wow.
so yeah, very, very special lady. I don't know whether you saw that I wrote a song with a friend called Queen of Hearts when, because Mavis obviously sadly passed away in 2022.
Yes.
And a friend of mine, Ron Patrick, who approached me as a singer from London and also knew Mavis. We'd done some work together because this was another thing that started to happen with me was music and as well as the poetry and writing songs. So I'd already done some work with Ron Patrick already, and I ended up. Ron says, "I've asked Jean's permission if we could write a song for Mavis." I'm like, gosh, no pressure there then, because how can you describe someone so profound in words like that? And I did, I wrote the lyrics and we both worked together on the melody by over Zoom. And I was like singing things through a recorder and Ron was doing that as well. And we collaborated and we created this beautiful song called Queen of Hearts. And it just encapsulates Mavis. It's some of the phrases that Mavis would say like within our mediumship, our conscious mind and our soul mind, it's allowing the lion to lay down with the lamb. So the lion being the conscious mind and the lamb being the soul. So allowing them to lie together helps you to become in unison. And, it's because your conscious mind is that distraction telling you can't do it and is that obstacle. So just allow that lion to lay down with the lamb and remove the obstacles. And so there's a
Wow.
line in the song, um, you tame the lion to love the lamb. That's what I put within that. So, and another thing that Mavis should say, and I always say this in interviews because I always think it's so important, but she'll say, "You may be shy, Adam, but your soul isn't." And those words helped me so much. And I know I've always passed them on to my students because it's so powerful because the
That
soul
is.
is so encouraging and there's you know we all have this plan and a purpose of our soul and why we're here, and I think we can all experience that battle between the conscious mind and the soul, and usually the conscious mind wins because we'll retract with things and we won't do things and we'll make ourselves small, not move forward in some ways. And if we just allow the lion to lay down with the lamb, we allow
Yeah.
the soul to rise, and then we can do what is our potential. So there's so much I owe Mavis for my where I am now. She's been such an influence to me, such a good teacher, and I've got no doubt, and I know that she's still working from the spiritual world, helping those people as well as myself.
Oh, absolutely. I'm wondering this song because I have not heard it. Is there a link on your website? Like, how would people find that song?
Okay, so the song is called Queen of Hearts,
Yes.
and you can find it on my YouTube channel, Adam
Oh,
Berry.
okay.
I think it's
Okay.
Adam Berry Medium, or you can find it through Ron Patrick because he's a singer, so he publishes
Yeah.
all his, and there's some beautiful songs as well that he covers on there. But on mine, you'll get lots of sitting in the powers, interviews,
Yes.
different things on mine. But if you type in Queen of Hearts, Adam Berry, Ron Patrick in YouTube, you'll find it.
Okay. I will do that. I will add it in the show notes for people. And then when this interview goes on YouTube, I'll include it there so people can find that because that's such a beautiful tribute to her. Because
Yeah,
I've heard so many amazing things about her. And I was like, oh, Tell me stories. I want to know more about her because
Mhm.
I never had the opportunity to meet her. So I love that you shared those. Uh, those are so heart-touching stories of her to keep her memory alive because I feel like she lives forever in you. I don't know if you notice this when you talk to people, you can get a glimpse of who their mentor was by the words that they say.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's definitely an influence for me in that way. Because I'll always say this as well. Because one of the times as well, because another story coming here, but she took me out on the platform. This was one of the first times that she took me out, and it was a special. And obviously, this church was absolutely full that I've come to see Mavis. And Mavis had invited me up to do a couple of communications. Well, I was absolutely petrified at this. And um, again, she asked me to do the closing prayer. I remember, like being so nervous. I did one communication and struggled with it because, again, it was my confidence, it was my nerves with it.
mhm,
And she had planned for me to do two, but she knew if I'd have done another one, I would probably never have got back up again if it hadn't have been what we would say successful, or I felt it wasn't successful. And so it got to the end, and I had to do the closing prayer. So obviously I'd heard loads of closing prayers before, and I thought, oh, I
yeah.
can do that. So I did this closing prayer, and I remember feeling really chuffed with myself that I'd done this closing prayer. And in front of everybody, she just went, we're going to have to do something with that prayer. So
Oh no.
I was like, oh no. But do you know what? She actually said to me, Adam, you're not a prayer. You're not a prayer. Because I found it really difficult to pray publicly, and what my
Yeah,
understanding of prayer was. And she had to write me a prayer out on the call. She had to write me a prayer. And so she must have been heavily inspired to do that because that was the right thing for me to build upon that prayer,
yeah.
and I've still got it written down in her writing that she wrote this prayer for me. And, you know, that was the basis and the structure for me to learn and appreciate and understand the art of prayer. So I love prayer now because it's something, it holds a different meaning. It's not just a tick in a box to do at a divine service or opening a, a spiritual development circle or anything like that. It's setting the intention of about what you're going to do. It's a sacred place. You're bringing everybody together collectively. And once we start to understand that, prayer revolutionized or evolution, it's evolutionary. So it's very, I even think I talk about sitting in the power. I believe that's a living prayer because we're in that same power of that God source, and that's what we're doing. We're being thankful, and we're acknowledging that presence is within us, around us, and runs throughout everything and everyone. So all we're doing is acknowledging and bringing everybody together within that same conscious thought and feeling, and it's just so beautiful. And I would never have been able to talk about prayer like this years ago. It
Oh
was
wow.
so I just know that it's changed me, and it's changed my philosophy. It's changed my whole being with that understanding. So from that little bit of a help of writing and constructing a
Yes.
prayer out for me, it's actually been the catalyst of me exploring prayer, and and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's I never ever thought I would talk about prayer in this way.
I love that because I've always, well, I grew up in a Catholic family, so prayer was always reciting words, right? It's like you say this prayer and you recite it, you go to church, you recite the words. And then I even remember us as kids growing up, uh, we didn't even know what half the words meant. And then we kind of made words. And then our aunts, our uncles would be like, did you even hear the word? Did you even say the proper words? Because we recited it so much, it was no longer a prayer with intention. And then
Yeah.
as I got older, it was like, oh, okay, wait, what do the words actually mean here? And
Yeah.
then with my son, because he wanted to learn to pray in Portuguese, and I'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, let's like he goes, but I hear you guys say you're not saying it properly. And I went and printed it off, and I'm like, okay. And then it's almost like I had to reteach myself how to say it properly because my
Yeah.
son was
Yeah.
so intrigued with prayer. Like he loves all of this stuff. So he's like, Mom, I really want to learn the words and the meaning behind it because I hear you
Yeah.
guys pray and you miss half the words. So I
Yeah.
love that and I look forward to learning more because I find too within my own mediumship, whatever I knew like 5 years ago, it's just there's a deeper understanding. I feel like the iceberg, like I was at the tip and I'm like, oh, there's like 95% I have no idea about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's lovely. And I'm just running a class at the moment at my local church. It's like a 12-week awareness to development, and I'm covering prayer. So what I love about that is that I'm able to bring my experience of not being a prayer and being told I'm not a prayer, to help them with their own prayer and the importance of it and the sacredness of it and what it really means. So I'm actually getting them to write their own prayers at the moment. That's the bit of homework for this week, to actually open the evening that we have on a Thursday and to close it, and I want them to express it in their own way, but from what I've taught them in a way about prayer, because that prayer has to come from within them as well, so, and I think once they experience the importance of that to set the scene for the evening about what we're going to do, then I think it will be something that will help them when they start running their classes as well. Because I just want, I suppose, a bit like Mavis, I'm planting things there so that they can help themselves because I'm doing this 12-week course, and then you know, for now anyway, whether I continue, I don't know yet, but
Yes.
that's how it is. But I like to leave people with the tools of things that they're not relying on me to
Yes.
be able to further their development or explore different things. And as part of my classes as well, we're exploring creativity, speaking, mediumship, all these different parts. And part of it is about them standing up and speaking. Whereas a lot of people get drawn just to the communication side and want to just communicate with the spirit world. But to me, it's all part of it. And some people can um, come this uh, into spiritualism, I'm going to say, and
Mhm.
want to learn about communicating with the spirit world. But sometimes they can be trying to fit a square peg into a hole, and it's not actually that there's been this something that's led them to this point, but then there's this beautiful creativity that they've got to explore, or this beautiful healing that they've got this potential to do, and
Yes.
Um, I think sometimes what I've found over time is some people are so focused on looking at the people on the platform wanting to do that rather than exploring within of what the potential is that they actually are. And, they could be all of those things as well. And I think we can be guilty of just focusing on just one aspect of our development.
Yes.
Because as I said, I'd done that for years. And then just as in the last couple of years, it's like it's gone into poetry, it's gone into songs and singing,
Yes.
and which I never ever thought I could do. I mean, I'm in my I'm just turned 43. So, it's something new has happened that I'm thinking, why didn't this happen when I was like a teenager? Or, it's madness. But I
Yeah.
suppose we all have a time, and it's never too late to do anything really. And I think we should all just explore that inner potential that we've got. And I always believe as well it is that service to humanity. That what we have within and what we share, that light that we share, whether it is through words or through mediumship or through creativity, it is that light to the world, and we are sharing within that. And when we help one another, then we're actually being of service to humanity. And I believe that is where the power of spirit comes in, because the power of spirit, that God force ignites us when we're aware of it into our potential. That the humanity and the spirituality must go in unity, and our spirituality is sort of recognized and expressed through how we deal with people here. So we
True.
can't be we can't be too um you know in the spirit world and too spirituality. And as another saying that Mavis would say is, you can't be too heavenly of no earthly use. And I think that's a wonderful saying, and it's true. And sometimes it's so important. We are here in this world for a reason, to help each other, the brotherhood of man,
Yes.
the brotherhood and sisterhood of man, I'd like to say. And the more that we do that, the more we're of service. I believe the more spirituality that becomes of us as well. So it's a flow. It's a flow. And that's what I believe anyway.
I agree. And I don't think you can rush mediumship. And I've really learned that this year. Because for me, a few years ago, I went and got a spiritual assessment at Arthur Findlay over Zoom.
Yeah,
And the medium said, "Oh, in the future, you're a platform medium." And I was like, "No, I'm not. No, she's wrong." And me being stubborn, I was determined to prove her wrong.
yeah,
So I signed up for a trance course.
yeah,
And I love Eileen Davies. And I was in this course, and she's such an amazing person. And everybody's doing these inspirational speaking. And this was like 4 years ago, and I'm just sitting in class and I can't get it. But I was so determined to prove this person wrong. I don't know why, because I was
yeah,
like, but that's so cool. And I know I can do, and I couldn't do it. Like I just really
yeah,
struggle. Then a few
yeah,
weeks ago, I signed up with Simone Key, and she did inspirational speaking. And it was
yeah,
a 4 hour workshop from the Journey Within. I think it was 3 hours or something. And I was like, okay, you know what? I heard about her. I love to take a workshop just to find out more about her.
yeah,
And as I sat in it, I could actually do it. And someone was like, "Oh, you've been doing this for years?" I was like, "No, I tried this 4 years ago. It didn't work." So there's that whole thing of divine timing. I really learned that lesson from the spirit world. And that
yeah,
was only a few weeks ago, because I was just like, "No, I'm determined to prove them wrong."
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah. But I wanted to talk about your book, which is Soul Rise, because you're talking about prayer. So I thought, how beautiful to bring this up. How did this book come to be? Because there's so much beautiful poetry in this book.
Yeah. So over the years, I always call myself the accidental poet, because if I wanted to express something, it seemed to just start rhyming, and it wasn't an intentional thing. And I just thought, "Oh, just go with it." So over the years, so within the book and the order of the book, the poems are in order of time that I've written them as well.
Mhm.
So like Roundabout was probably one of the first poems that I wrote.
Okay.
The Bottle My Friend was one that I wrote, because there were always something specific on in my life at that point to express. So they were just there and probably written down somewhere in a box and not even thought of, and it was just at that time. And then obviously over time, I started to just write a little bit more. I went on a, a silent retreat as well, Vipassana, which was a 10-day silent retreat. And when I came back from there, because that was really going within, it was
Mhm.
meditation, mindfulness, and from there, it was as if like when I left, it was like this burst of, I was writing 3 or 4 poems in an evening.
Mhm.
My partner's there watching TV and I'm just in this zone writing poetry. And I was getting excited about writing it. And what I was doing, I was sharing some on social media, like on Facebook, just with people on my friends list. And people were saying, you should publish this and you should, I'd find a nice picture, background, and I'd just put these words on. And it was just happening so much so that I was thinking maybe there's something in this. And it was my friend Suzette Carlisle. She and it was the poem Share. She said, when you write a poem called Share, that's when you need to stop sharing. Well, whether she put that seed in my head, I did write a poem called Share. What happens is I write something and then I'll do the title after. I don't know what it's going to be. So that poem was more about sharing. So and I did, and I started to collate, and it was probably the easiest thing that I could ever have done. This book, Soul Rise, it was the most natural thing because I'd already provided all the poems and the pictures, and
Mhm.
everything was already collated all together already. It was just like the finer details, and you'll notice in Soul Rise as well that there's a reflections page.
Yes.
And it was something a bit different, and it was something I wanted because
Oh,
there was a yeah, the
there we
reflections
go.
page. So that page is for when you read that poem, what are you inspired by? What do you recognize within your life? What pictures do you want? Do you want to draw a picture? Do you want to? It's just a blank page. Because
Mhm.
at first I thought, shall I put lines on it? And I'm thinking, no, because I'm assuming that people want to write words, and it could be that they want to draw. So that's the reason why it's blank.
Oh, I
And
like that.
yeah, and how that was born was a work colleague of mine read, because I'd share my poems with like my work colleagues, and she read the one called Acceptance. She goes, "Oh, that's really nice." That she says, "But
Mhm.
I'm struggling with it. I'm struggling." And I says, "Do you feel like you'd need to write something down?" And she says, "Yeah." To express it. And that's where that were born from, just from that little conversation. That's where that reflections page came from. And, I just, it's something that I've not seen before either. So I'm sure it was
Yeah.
just inspired and thought it's turning into, even though this is my perception, this is my expression, and some of the things are personal within that, it's actually encouraging personal development for people as well,
Mhm.
because it helps people to look inside themselves or see what triggers within them with those poems that they can relate to,
Yes.
and then maybe write that scenario down, and in that way it could be a healing for them.
Absolutely. And then you were mentioning before we got on about the poem Happy. So can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that poem Happy, or if you want to read it out loud, like it's up to you. Just for those that are on YouTube and you could see the poem. It's beautiful.
Okay, so the reason why I spoke about the poem Happy is because it's actually being used at a friend's sister's memorial tomorrow. In fact, it's a sister sadly passed away during the COVID time, and she couldn't have a proper memorial or celebration of life at that time because of the restrictions. And so tomorrow it's 3 years since she passed away, and she's having a memorial service. And my friend has asked if she could use the poem Happy. And it just so happened that she keeps my book in a bedside cabinet. She says she always keeps it there and she dips in and out of it. She says she loves it. But this particular morning where she's trying to arrange the memorial, she just felt drawn to the book and she opened it, and this she read the words of happy. She thought that's perfect. That's absolutely. And would you mind if I used it at the memorial? And I said, of course not. So, cut a long story short, we've had some copies of it made, and she wants everyone to take a copy of it away because it's reminding her about Colette and how she wanted everybody to be happy. So, but going back to the inspiration behind this poem, was actually my sister. And it's what Mavis said to me. It's again another thing that Mavis said to me. And when we're going through grief, when we've lost someone that we love dearly, and when it, sometimes you don't know when that grief is going to end. You don't know, and even knowing what we know, and we know, but we're mediums or we're spiritualists, and we know about life after death, but it doesn't stop that physical, emotional pain of the loss of that person. And me and my sister were so close. We just understood each other completely. And she was 13 years older than me as well. So she was more like a mum in some ways. So it was very hard for me when she passed away. And I always remember Mavis saying to me, Adam, it's time for you to be happy now for your sister. And
Oh,
And at that time, I didn't understand what she meant. I'm thinking, what does she mean? And then I realized when I wrote this poem, I realized it was that realization that, for me to be happy for her in the spirit world is helping her, because knowing that I'm happy for her means she can be happy for me, rather than, because there is that different type of grief in the spirit world that, they we can't see them or feel them, as when they're presenting themselves. And I say that in a more generic way with people, because when we're going through that grief, it's like we've got this barrier around us or this shell. So
yeah.
we can't connect with people in this world, never mind the spirit world, when we're in that place. So when I wrote this poem, it was a time where I know what Mavis meant. It's now time for me to be happy for my sister. And I just think it's beautiful that someone else has seen that beauty within their own sister and they're sharing it. And, it just warms my heart so much that the book is being used in that way, because, people are using it for celebrations of life, because there's some poems about like the next chapter that are so significant and give hope and an explanation about things that can help people to heal. So it really warms my heart that it's used in that way. But I'll just read this poem out to you called Happy.
Okay.
As you left this land on your onward flight, leaving our world in black and no light, your presence was love and always so true. Things will never be the same. We will always miss you. Your little reminders of memories so dear. Through music or TV, the signs are so clear. The blackness can lighten when we feel you close. Not close as we once knew, but with a new host. A host of angels that you are now part of, with your beautiful voice singing your heart out. As you lift off high and you leave this land, remembering our times now in the universal hands. As the time ticks further in this crazy thing called life, you are always nearer when in our times of strife. So blessed are we to know this truth, that this darkness we feel would really upset you. So we wish you well with all things bright and colours so precious, not black or white. You were never dull. You wouldn't want us to be down. So it's time to be happy for you and turn this frown around.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for those that want to purchase it, it is called Soul Rise by Adam Berry, and you can find it on Amazon. So thank you for sharing that. Oh, I just got goosebumps. That was so beautiful. And then here's another book that you're in. You wrote in
Yes.
it. It's called
Yeah.
Demystifying Mediumship: What Makes a Medium by Carrie Alderkucci. Did I say that right? I don't know how to say her last.
Alderusho. Alderusho.
Perfect. And how did you end up in this book, sharing your story? Like, what's your connection to Carrie?
Well, what it was, I was on a week at the Arthur Findlay College as a student, and Kerry was on there as well. And little did I know that, I mean, I love speaking. I spoke with Kerry, and she was lovely, as you do when you're at the college and you mix with people. And I had my roomies as well, Jeff and Tyrone, and um, they knew Kerry as well. So everyone sort of mingled together. But it was after the college experience, I suppose, Kerry approached me to see whether I'd like if I'd be kind enough to be a chapter in her book. And it was that she saw me demonstrate whilst I was at the college, and she actually puts a little bit of a introduction of how she knew me in there before my chapter,
Yes.
and she loved my demonstration of mediumship and felt inspired by that. So again, it's something I didn't realize. I was just in the class, and I didn't realize that someone would f feel that way, other than the person that was obviously receiving the communication. And you know, we did a Zoom because obviously she lives in Australia, and yeah, she sort of interviewed me and wrote the story, and we you know, it was just a wonderful experience and quite liberating, really, because people have always said to me, Adam, you should write a biography or something, you should write. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I've got the time to do that. And this is really like a snippet of my life. I mean, I've been quite vulnerable within there as well, because I'm
Yes.
always very honest about my life. I don't hide anything, because I think it's always important to know where you've come from, and you know what the aim of the book were for Kerry was to have all these 17 chapters of the mediums, and to show that mediumship is normal. These people are normal. They've had normal lives, maybe even quite, you know, challenging lives, but they've had lives like everybody else in the way of their struggles within life. And as and she was trying to normalize mediumship, which I think she's done a wonderful job with the book. I loved reading. I'm not even a reader. What I did, why it was good for me, because I'm dyslexic, so I find it hard with reading. So because they were in chapters, it was easier for me to read within that for each person. And what I did with each person as well, and I love doing this, I found what inspired me with their story and
Yes.
what resonated with me. And you know what? I wrote to each one of them. I wrote to each one of the people in the book. I didn't know some of them, but I reached out, and just because I think the contact details was in there as well. Kerry had put the
Yes.
contact details.
Yes,
So
she did.
I contacted them and took I wrote it down on my Samsung notes how I felt about their story to keep,
Yeah.
and then I actually wrote to them just to say thank you for sharing, and to each one of them, because um you know, stories inspire me,
Mhm.
and to be able to resonate, and especially where people have had a similar pathway to you as well, when you can feel that you're all alone on
Yes.
this journey a lot of the time, because you're on your own with your own thoughts, and when you overthink things and procrastinate, and you know, that can hold you back with things. And it's those kind of stories are stories that set you free.
Oh, I
And
like that. Yes.
and I think, and that's why I share my story, because it can set people free from their own story. And that's what it's all about. We're all here. Again, it's another book of service, isn't it? It's something that can help people.
Absolutely. I highly recommend people get this book because I've been reading it. There's a lot of Arthur Findlay tutors in here.
There is, yeah,
And then
yeah,
there are just regular people like us that are in there sharing their incredible stories in there. And in here, it's very detailed, your story too. I noticed because I was reading through it. And then
Yeah,
there's a part in there where you talk about your best friend, Claire. So do you want
yeah,
to
yeah.
tell us a little bit about her? I feel like we all need a Claire in our lives.
That's what I say. We all need a Claire in our life. And do you know, I've just she's just turned 50 this year, and
Wow.
I wrote a poem for her and put it in a frame about best friends. Um, she has been one of the most influential people in my life because I met her when I was 16. She was 23. And we both had that common interest in spirituality, tarot cards, astrology, all those sorts of things. But there was something in Claire that she saw in me that I couldn't see. And she believed in me. So she used to call me the mute because I didn't speak.
Oh,
I
wow.
I really didn't have an opinion on things, or I was so shy. And she used to be like my voice in some ways, and she used to stick up for me. And um, but you know, she's just one of them people that completely, you know, you can tell you anything to, and she can tell me anything, and we've just always been there for each other. And it's like now was, you know, it was always that the tables were uh, the scales were tilted probably back then because I was so unconfident and she was so confident. But now we're in this beautiful place where we're just on a level, and you know, and that's, and we're just grown together. And you know what she says is, you have your soul family, soul friends, and she'll always say, "We came down same chute together." She calls it the chute. We came down same chute, and I do believe that we've, um, you know, she has helped me within my life so much. I don't know, like Mavis has in the mediumistic way and spiritual way. I think we meet these special people within our lives for a reason, and and I'm just so lucky to have Claire, and you know, and I've got to say my husband Sean as well, because
Yes.
you know I can't not say that. And my family, I feel I'm blessed with the people that I've had, even at times where I felt like I've had nobody. There has been somebody there, you know, and it's been through the challenges that I've had within life, to have those people here as a constant and strong is such a blessing. So even though I'm sort of like going off doing my mediumship, and they're not doing that, they've got an interest in it, but they support me 100% in whatever I do. You know, and
Yeah.
we're always here to pick up the pieces of anything that someone else has done. Or, you know, it's just beautiful. So yeah, and she's funny. You know, she's one of the funniest people you'd ever meet. And, you know, like I say, everyone in life needs a Claire.
I agree. I have a Dana and a Christine, and I love them. And
Yeah,
they're like, we start at the same and we keep going and we keep supporting each other. And I love it. And I just, as we approach, we've been talking for almost an hour. So I want to
yeah,
say thank you so much for joining us this morning, for sharing your story, for
yeah,
sharing all those beautiful memories because they were
yeah,
so heartfelt. And yes, and I'm gonna have all of Adam's information on podcast and on YouTube, all the links so you guys can find him and follow him on his social media and reach out to him. So
yeah.
thank you so much, Adam, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.